Hello, my name is Patrice Perkins Hooker, and I am the president of the State Bar of Georgia. I am here in conjunction with the National Center for Civil and Human Rights to welcome you to our videos on legends who were engaged in the Selma to Montgomery movement. We hope that you enjoy. Dr. Reese, I am very happy that you were able to come to the State Bar today to talk to us a little bit about your role in the Selma to Montgomery movement and march. I understand that you still live in Selma?
Correct.
And did you stay in Selma the entire time?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So tell me a little bit about what you did back in 1965 or 64 and 65 to help with this effort.
Well, in 1964-65, we were involved in trying to make sure that all people, regardless of skin color, would have a right to participate in the political process that governed their lives. It just so happened that at that time, I was president of the Selma-Dallas County Voters League.
Okay.
And of course, I then tried every effort I could to make sure that all people, regardless of skin color, would have a right to participate in the political process that governed their lives. And so those persons who happened to have been African American, whose skin was not white, then had to endure the kind of discriminatory practices that had been known throughout many years in the South and certainly in Selma. And I guess the Lord had me in the right place, the right time, with no sense, had me to come and actually see that all people, regardless of the color of their skin, or the content of their character, would have a right to participate in the political process that governed their lives. And so this was somewhat of a determination of mine to make sure that all people, and I keep saying all people because I have reference, all people would actually include all people of skin color. And we had to endure through years acts of discrimination based on skin color.
So had you grown up in Selma?
I grew up in Selma.
So what age did you take on the presidency of the Selma Voting Rights League?
I imagine I was about 20, a little less. And certainly it was always a determination of mine to make sure that all people, regardless of the color of their skin, would be treated fairly, be given the same rights that any other person had, not based on skin color, but by the content of their character. We had a right to enjoy the blessings that were bestowed upon all people, regardless of skin color.
So what propelled you at 20 to do that versus any earlier time? Was there something that happened particularly in Selma that said, okay, enough is enough, we need to take a stand now? Anything happened?
Well, I think that prior to my being 20 years old, we had certain situations in Selma that existed which was discriminatory in practice. And so me being a child and being somewhat discouraged with the way that certain people were being treated, even prior to my 20s, then I was determined to make sure that people would be treated fairly, not based on skin color, because skin color really got me where I was, but certainly by the content of a person's character. They should be accepted and should be given an opportunity to enjoy the blessings that all people, regardless of skin color, should enjoy. Mm-hmm. Not only in Selma, but all over the state of Alabama and in the country of the United States of America.
I agree with that. Mm-hmm. So did you finish high school in Selma?
Yes.
And then what happened after you left high school? What did you do after the 65 era?
Well, when I finished high school, then I was somewhat determined to make sure that all of the discriminatory practice I had seen prior to finishing high school, that I would take the lead in making sure that I would get other people involved in making sure that all people, regardless of skin color, would have a right to participate in the political process that governed their lives. So that was my determination. And so I guess I always say that the Lord had me in the right place, the right time, with no sense, trying to make sure that all people would have a right to participate in the political process that governed their lives.
Did you ever run for public office down in Selma after you got these rights? Did you ever offer yourself as a candidate?
Well, I offered myself, certainly, but I didn't necessarily want to win, but I certainly want to make sure that people understood that people, regardless of skin color, should have a right to run, to participate in the political process that govern their lives. And so I'm determined to make sure that all people understood that I meant that all people. So then I really signed up. I didn't really didn't mean to go anywhere, but I signed up to actually make sure that I would be accepted as a person, regardless of my skin color.
So what year did you do that?
Oh, that was in I can't remember the exact year.
Okay.
But it had to be between 1967.
Okay. So it was early on,
yes.
right after the voting.
Yes.
Okay. So did you go to college after you finished high school?
Yes.
Okay. Where did you go?
I went to Alabama State University in Montgomery.
So you went up to Montgomery, and then you came back to home to Selma.
Came back home to Selma.
Right. So what difference or changes occurred in Selma as a result of the march in 1965, or marches in 1965?
Well, I think that after the march, people then had to be connected with either making sure that all people had certain rights that had been denied certain rights, and that many people then took the lead in making sure they want to become involved in a struggle that many people thought that I didn't have much sense doing, but I certainly want to encourage all people, regardless of skin color, to become involved and to know that all people had a right to participate in the political process that really governed their lives. And so I was determined, and of course, yes.
Still determined.
Still determined. Yes, I went to jail.
Okay, you went to jail in Selma?
Selma, yes.
So did you go to jail because of the marches that took place before Bloody Sunday, or some activities that took place afterwards?
Well, before and after, I think.
Okay.
You see, because I guess my name had become a household name for trying to make sure that all people would have a right to participate in political process. And so there were persons who were determined not to allow certain people to have certain rights. But I was determined that I was going to give all I had to make sure that all people, regardless of skin color, because rights of people had been determined by skin color prior to that time. But I want to abolish that particular assessment and that have all people have the same rights regardless of the color of your skin or the content of your character.
So were you involved on the march on Bloody Sunday?
Yes.
Okay, so were you one of the students actually marching? And then tell me what happened to you on that day.
Well, on that particular day, they call it Bloody Sunday.
Yeah, but that's unfortunate. It's the title.
Well, it was my privilege to be a leader. And so I led a group of persons who wanted to be involved. I was on the front line of that march. And we left the church there in Selma and went down this famous avenue, Broad Street, and across the bridge. And of course, we wanted to make sure that all people understood that we were determined not to allow discriminatory practices to keep us from really going forward and making sure all people would have the same rights and the same privileges that all people had, regardless of the color of their skin.
So what happened in the mayhem after the Alabama State Patrol and troopers came forward and confronted your all's line? What happened?
Well, we were determined. Well, we kind of expected most anything, naturally, because we were actually trying to make sure that people understood that we were determined, regardless of skin color, to make sure all people had the same rights. And so when we decided that we were going to take a stand, naturally you had state troopers and others who were determined to make sure that we were discouraged and that those people who saw us would become discouraged based on what we were receiving, the kind of violence and the billy clubs that we had to undergo. But saying all of that only made many of us determined that we were going to push forward regardless of the consequence. And so I'm sitting here today thanking God for having brought me through many dangers, seen and unseen, and allowed me to be sitting here today talking to you.
Yeah, I think that you probably risked a lot as a kid or a young person to obtain a lot of the benefits and privileges and rights that I have been blessed to receive, and I appreciate all of those efforts. When you came back to someone, how did you get to be a minister from you said you went to college at A&M, but did you start with a church there when you got out of college, or did you do something else in your career?
Yeah, I was involved with a church. And of course, the kind of things that happened to me when I attended church really kind of led me to accept the call that I felt was really pushing on me, to accept the call to become a minister of the gospel. And so, without any delay, I accepted the call to become a minister of the gospel. And so when I made that decision, there were many people who were almost just, I can't believe it. But suddenly, there was a struggle within me that kept me struggling, trying to understand what great thing the Lord had in store for others through me. And so I stood fast. I was denied certain opportunities, but I stood fast. And the Lord brought me, as somebody said, from nowhere to somewhere. And I'm sitting here today talking to you, and I'm grateful.
Well, it's 50 years from the time as the 20-year-old you said who didn't have a lot of sense or should have known better, made that courageous effort and stance to be determined to try and fight for justice. What have you learned? What would you tell the next generation about your experience? Of what particular piece of knowledge have you gained that you want to share with the next generation?
Well, I will share this piece of knowledge, that whatever may be the circumstance in your life that cause you to feel inferior, that you would seek to eliminate that. Take a stand for what you feel to be right for all people, not based on skin color, because all of the things that had transpired prior to that time basically was determined by the color of your skin and not the content of your character. And so I was determined that I would no longer allow the color of my skin to determine the kind of stance that I would take to make sure that all people, regardless of skin color, would have a right to participate in the political process that govern their lives. And so I'm sitting here today thanking God for having brought me all the way and allowed me to be sitting here today to talk to you. I'm grateful.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much for sharing the story.
Yeah.
It's important that we keep what happened to you in mind, because we don't want history to ever repeat itself again.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed this video. I encourage you to get involved and find out more information on the civil rights movement at the National Center for Civil and Human Rights. Thank you.